the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries.
Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about the gift of peace.
Okay.
Because there's so much confusion in the world today. I think we need to take a serious look at how we can attain peace.
What do you mean by peace?
Well, before I get into the subject matter,
Okay.
though, I'd like to give thanks and express my gratitude to my elder Shadrach, who has taught me well over the last 30 years or so. He's given me a clear understanding of the world so that I could see the difference between education, which is based on truth, from our perspective anyway, and speculation, which is based on the lie, from the position of the world.
Okay.
Yes.
Education and speculation. Now, what does education and speculation then have to do with peace?
The interesting concept here is that peace is a result of freedom, which is a result of truth. So, to go forward, I gave you the backward presentation, but to go forward, without truth, there is no freedom. And without freedom, there can be no peace.
Okay. I just want to focus a little bit on peace here for a moment. Okay. When I think peace, I think people holding hands and swaying, but I'm assuming that's not what you're getting at when you say peace.
That's a very strange way of looking at peace, but I guess that would be a woman's perspective, which is fine. When I say peace, I'm talking total harmony.
Okay.
Harmony of body, soul, and spirit. Think of it as a musician, and he or she is playing on the piano or whatever, and they have certain chords, and I'm not a musician. I'm just dreaming this up in my head.
I've heard you say a couple tunes, so I don't know.
But think of it as there has to be a harmony to have not only the right chords in the right order, but to give meaning to the musical expression. So when we speak of peace, we're putting the creator with the creature in one accord. Now, when I say one accord, they're not on the same level. However, they are in the position to communicate with each other effectively. And that is what peace is all about. It allows you to communicate effectively with your creator. And I like to think of it as the pathway to peace, as the pathway to the New Jerusalem.
Okay, so what you're saying sounds amazing. It's something that I personally would love to attain. How does one go about obtaining this peace?
Very good. The Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries, we are the peacemakers. We were chosen by the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Even before he laid the foundation for this earth and stretched out the corners, or the four corners of the earth, he selected us. He adopted us, our family, to be his servant forever. In other words, anything pertaining to peace, you have to see the peacemakers, who are the people that have the spirit of truth, have the spirit of understanding from a biblical perspective, right? We would allow each individual who is interested in pursuing truth and peace to learn. It's an educational format. You learn from what is written in the Bible about the Israelites, for the Israelites, by the Israelites, and you learn how to talk to our Father, and then that transition. It is not sudden. It's a gradual transition that occurs over time.
So for our listeners who are just beginning or maybe even starting to go on this journey of peace or understanding or truth as it is.
Truth, freedom, peace.
You mentioned the Bible.
Yes.
How it's written for us, by us.
About us.
About us. Yes. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yes. I like to ask individuals, this is new individuals, to take the Israelite test. This is what I call it.
Okay.
The Israelite test. And I say, get your Bible. Close it. Close your eyes for a minute. Then open the Bible to any place and start to read. When you read that Bible, and you can do this over as many times as you want, every time you read that Bible, you're guaranteed to be reading about an Israelite, and you're guaranteed to be reading a documentation that was written by an Israelite, and you're guaranteed to be reading documentation that was for the education of an
Okay.
Israelite.
So I'm going to try and take that test.
Go right
Okay,
ahead.
I have a Bible with me here.
Yes.
Close my eyes. That's the
Close
first
your
step.
eyes,
Bible.
open the book, anywhere you want, and read.
And a certain man of the sons of the prophets said unto his neighbor in the world.
Stop right there. First, tell me who is speaking. Who's the writer, author?
It's Kings. First Kings.
First Kings. So you're reading about Israelite kings.
Ahab.
And I heard you said prophet.
Yep.
So
Sons
the
of
only
prophets.
prophets on this earth were Israelites. And
Yep.
you said, go ahead.
Sons of the prophets said unto his neighbor in the word of the Lord, smite me, I pray thee. And the man refused to smite him.
Okay.
about
So
King
you're
Ahab.
reading about the culture of the Israelites. So Israelite is the teacher, and Israelite is the writer, and it's Israelite culture
Okay,
or
so-
history, however you want to put it.
Just for those who say, hey, the Old Testament is done away with, let's try this
On the
also
new?
in the New Testament.
Yes,
Let me
go right
just
ahead.
go to the end here, close my eyes. Paul, an apostle of Jesus Christ, by the will of
Stop
God.
right there. Who is the teacher? Who's written that?
Paul,
Paul? No, is it written to somebody?
apostle to Galatians, to the Galatians.
To the Galatians. So you have Paul, an Israelite teacher, teaching the Galatians in Asia Minor or wherever they are. And he is teaching about, I heard something about Christ.
Apostle of Jesus Christ, by the will of God.
Say no more. All he is talking about is our Israelite culture. Yes,
If I go further, it says Timothy is our brother.
there you go. You can get into it as far as you want to. But it is very simple. It's written by Israelites, for Israelites, about Israelites. And that's what we are trying to, that's the first step in the educational process. To know that, first of all, the script or the scripture that we use was written by us under the inspiration of our Father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. That inspiration gives us authority because he's the one that selected us. He chose us, took us or called us out of the world. We're still in the world, but we're not of the world. But we are sanctified to be his witnesses. That means that we are separated and we serve him. In other words, to share his word, which is the truth.
To the truth.
It's almost like if you had to go to court
Yes.
and you were a witness. The first thing you have to do is you have to swear. You have to swear on a book or take an oath to tell the truth. Well, usually they swear on our book,
In the Bible, yes.
right, on the Bible. But here we are serving this Almighty Spirit of truth. We do have an oath as well that we do take at the time when we begin the whole process. And we just continue to remember that and over time. But the key here is that we are witnessing to the truth, which is the word of our Father.
So in a time now where we have the division in the U.S., we have COVID-19 spreading across the world, we have a political uprising, the different opinions on social justice, peace. When we say peace, how does it come to play a part in what we're seeing now unfolding, or does it have any correlation to that?
There is some, but I think in order to put everything in perspective, we have to go back to the beginning. And when I say the beginning, go back to the time of the Babylonians.
Okay.
And you would see that Babylon was used as a cup, even a golden cup, in the hands of the God of Israel. And he caused all the nations to drink from that cup, to drink the wine from that cup. The nations subsequently got drunk and are mad. They're totally intoxicated, and some of them to the point where they have mental diseases or disorders.
Okay.
This is serious. So all of that transpired. Look, we have a situation in Rome today. And Rome, you got the Pope. He goes into his shrine. The shrine is made in the image of a serpent. You can go online and see the teeth, the eyes, the mouth. All of this is there. And I'm like, I mean, why would he do that? Not criticizing him, unless he is a servant of the serpent. You see?
Okay.
All of that is part and parcel of what we have to deal with. They're serving their God the way they know how, and here we are. We have to bring forth a doctrine of truth, right? In order to get freedom, and after freedom, then peace.
Okay. In order to seek the truth, we then first have to learn.
If you want to get peace, you have to start with the truth.
With
And the truth is the doctrine of the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries. This was given to us by our Father because he is the Spirit of truth.
Okay. Walk me through it.
Okay.
Because I'm understanding that in order to get the truth, we have to go to the Israelite or the
Yes,
book.
The Israelite.
The-
To the Israelite,
to
and the
Israelite.
Israelite has the book.
Has the book in order to get the truth. So walk me through that process. So I'm here, I'm listening to this podcast, and I'm inspired. I'm liking what you're saying. How do I go through that process? Do I just say, okay, Israelites, you're the truth? Is there proof? Like, how does it?
Okay. First of all, right now, it's the Bible. The Bible is our source.
Yes.
Right? Our teaching, our document whereby we teach from. Right now, because of the situation that I was describing at the beginning, where there's a lot of confusion throughout the world because people are dying through to the pandemic situation, you have to go online and you can watch one of our broadcasts, either the YouTube or the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
You can also read the Bible on your own and write to us, or you could get one of Elder Shadrach's books. I think we probably only have The Truth, the Lie, and the Bible right now. But those are certain components, vital components even, that any strange person who wants to acquire a knowledge of the truth and thereby gravitate or grow into the peace that we offer, that person could start there. You have then to get in contact with us so that one of the priests could give you the instructions and to guide you through the process. And after, you will start to see if things shape up differently for the better, then there's Passover celebrations. Before the Passover, there's New Year's. Then there's Passover. Then there's baptism, etc., etc.
Okay. You mentioned something that stuck with me that I kind of want to bring up now. You said plague. What did you mean when you said plague? Could you expand for our viewers?
Yes. This is very interesting, and this is one of the reasons why I'm proposing this gift of peace to the world. The world is presently engaged in one of the most challenging experiences ever in these modern times.
Mm-hmm.
People are dying by the thousands a week all over the world. What is very interesting about this, what I call the plague, is the fact that it occurred or it began at the end of our 400 years of slavery.
Mm-hmm.
We spent 400 years in the New Egypt, which is the United States of America, from 1619 until 2019. The plague started in April of 2020. It so happens that our calendar goes from spring to spring. April. So right after the end of the 400 years, this whole pandemic started to take on an attack on humanity. And I call it an era of judgment that we have started. Not us per se, but our Father, because he is the supreme judge. An era of judgment upon the nations that have enslaved us or contributed to our enslavement. Because it is important that people understand every man, every woman will be judged according to their deeds, sooner or later. So with all of this happening, the least that we could do is to bring a sense of awareness. And when I say we, I'm talking about the Israelite nation. Bring a sense of awareness to the world that there is a God of truth, that we are his people, and that we can share his word with them so that they too can be healed rather than just go off and be buried, after contracting this terrible disorder. And I say that keeping in mind that all the nations on this earth have drunk from the cup of Babylon and are not only intoxicated, that they're mentally challenged. And if your mind and your spirit is dying, there's not much left for the flesh to live on.
Let's say I say that I have peace. How are you telling me that I don't have that peace, or that I can only find that peace with you?
This is a very important question because there are a lot of people who make that same declaration. They're liars. Okay, they're liars because, as I said at the beginning, peace is the result of freedom, which is the result of the Spirit of truth. And the Spirit of truth was only given to the Israelites. And you can read that in the book of John. I think it's chapter 14, 15 to 17, whereby Christ Jesus is telling us, not only did he say that he would give us he would ask our Father to give us another comforter, even the Spirit of truth. He said, whom the world cannot receive. So if they can't get it, what do they get? And there's only two choices.
That's exactly where I was going to.
Good,
when you said the truth. If we have the truth, then they must have the lie.
Yes.
Yes.
So this is if a person is calling themselves a Christian and they're claiming to have peace or truth, they're liars. And if they're claiming that if they're using our book to teach, they're even bigger liars. You see, because they're violating the very precept of the book. Because in the book of Matthew, chapter 28, it says that only an Israelite can teach or baptize. Well, didn't say Israelite, but Christ Jesus was referring to the apostles, whom were all Israelites. Right? So how is it that they're calling themselves Christians? They're not in this book, and I've been trying for 30 years now to find out one Christian that is mentioned in this book. One.
I think that's very interesting that you brought that up, the apostles, how they're all Israelites. Because a lot of people, it is a popular opinion that to be an Israelite, you have to be Israelite by the flesh. But there was an apostle that wasn't Israelite by birth, correct?
Well, when you say Israelite by the flesh, I'm not following that. Because all Israelites, we have flesh. See, there's mine.
Okay, you're going to make me say
you have yours.
A lot of people feel
Yes.
To be an Israelite, you have to be black, but that's not the case.
No.
No.
You see, when it comes to skin complexion, that is, for me personally, I take that as a very, very profound subject matter. And the reason why is because when the God of Israel created man and woman, he created them from the dust of the earth. And in the area in which he was created in Eden, it so happened that he used the best soil. And the best soil is always the blackest. It's called humus. You could go to your local store and buy it. Walmart has it. Okay. And you will get the blackest soil ever. It also happens to be the most fertile. So just to say a black person or a white person is somewhat stupid. Right? It is better to say a person who has black complexion or a person who does not have the black complexion. You see, so when it happens like that, then you're taking into consideration the Creator as well. You're giving him the credit for what he has done, and you're not just being frivolous.
Okay.
You see? So this is important. Now, but to the people who may be called so-called white people, they have melanin too. They have but the melanin now, the blackness, is on the inside. I mean, we have it too on the inside as so-called black people. You see what I'm saying? But they, over time, have lost theirs on the outside.
Pigmentation.
Right? But they still have the blood. They still have the inner content. So how do you can't really say a black man or a black woman or a white man or a white woman by just looking at them. You see what I'm saying? Because they have the same characteristics on the inside as the ones that may not look like you or me. So this is why people need to be governed by more, I can't even find the word, principles that are contributing not only to the glorification of our God, but also to their edification. Because we cannot be so casual with something so important, so essential and crucial as the creation of a human being. You see, this whole issue started with Christianity about the 15th, 16th century, when they decided that all the Europeans were, the Gentile Europeans were considered white by the Christians, and the other people were considered black. They said the Christians worship a God that they understood, and the other people didn't worship the Christian God. Mm-hmm. So it was used, the word black and white was used in a derogatory sense. It didn't allow for the humanity of it all, meaning the humus, the melanin, the creation of our Father, right? Both inside and outside. That point is missed. So if we could bring that precept back into the school system, into the whole educational framework, I think our children could do better than the parents. Peace, as I said, is not just holding and dancing, hands and dancing.
Yes.
Peace is unity. Peace is the one accord. Peace is the ability to communicate with your Creator, right? It gives the human being a sense of satisfaction that they are worshiping the true and living God, that they are not just going through a process of deception. Because, as I said, you know, this Babylonian thing out there has caused a lot of confusion, because the sun is worshipped in many places today, and they have the cross in many places. Mm-hmm. When you see the sun being worshipped and the cross being used, right away I think of the snake, Lucifer, the serpent, who is the biggest deceiver on earth.
Can you talk to me a little bit more about the Babylonian pretext you're saying? A lot of people say America, for instance, is like the new Egypt, but you're speaking of Babylon, which is before Egypt.
Yes.
Can you talk to me a bit more about Babylon and how
from Babylon, they not only came to the Europe, they also came to the old Egypt, right? Keep that in mind, because we all started out, even our forefather, Abram, he started out in Babylon. Abram was the father of Ishmael, but Abraham was the father of Isaac. Same man, different spirit. So, you know, we aren't going to get into all of that.
There's a lot
I know,
into,
there's a lot to digest there. But the issue is, I just wanted to show that all of us came out of Babylon, right? But some of us were segregated, meaning the Israelite nation, and dedicated to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The rest, they just did whatever they wanted to do. This is what has caused the problem, because they are doing what they think is right without any proper leadership.
Truth.
Versus the lie. So we have the truth, they have the lie. They're prospering from the lie and the deception. Their ignorance is magnified, but yet they're making the money, right? So it makes it difficult for us to introduce this subject of truth, but it is necessary, because all men are slaves. The key here is that very few, less than 1%, are aware that they're all slaves, because sin is the biggest enslaver of all. And if you're a slave to sin, then you're going to need help. We can offer that help. We can educate you according to the precepts of truth. Having done that, then you can gain your freedom. Once you've gained your freedom, then you can obtain peace. And then you're on the path to the new Jerusalem.
What you said there, a lot of people don't even know that they're slaves.
That's right.
Think about Harriet Tubman when she had that quote, I don't remember it exactly, but how she spoke about how many slaves that she's freed, and if she could have freed a lot more if those slaves had known that they were indeed slaves. And that I had to kind of tie that in there because that really made me think about the whole ideal of slavery and the ignorance that surrounds it as well.
And a lot of people get even more ignorant because their bank accounts keep growing. You figured, well, I must be doing something right.
Ignorance is bliss, right? Yeah,
Or
exactly.
ignorance is stupid, but I don't know what it is. All I know is we stay as far away from it as possible. And I'm not saying we know everything. Don't get me wrong here. It is important that we stay within our own lane and not follow other people. That is the key. Now, the only difference is we call people out. If you have to change lanes, change it according to the law. And the law was given to us.
Now, you're talking about changing lanes,
Yes.
you're talking about ignorance and ignorance being bliss. A lot of people like to hold on to what makes them feel good or gives them that comfortable space. And now you speak about peace. And when you speak about peace, I think about, or us or Israelites as the peacemakers. I am thinking about Jesus and how he's the Prince of Peace, or he's called the Prince of Peace. And yet, he himself said that I have not come to
Bring peace.
Exactly.
Good point. Very good point. It's an advanced stage of learning. He came to bring peace. He did. But how do we get peace? We have to start with truth, right? And we're living in a world based and dominated by lies.
Yes.
So look at the two of them, right? They're going to go like this. There's a
Yep.
clash. So now what he is really saying is truth is like a sword. You see? So he didn't come to make peace. He came to give the peace, but he came with a sword, which is the truth. We use the truth like a sword in the sense because we are constantly at war with the lie or with the liars. You see? And the only what's the word? The only way to counteract the lie is to put the truth. The bomb of the truth must go forward.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And then people will stop. You could be in denial. You can deny it
Hold on to that ignorance.
and hold on
for
to
sure.
your ignorance because it's profitable. But if you really want to have peace, if you really want to feel good about yourself, because here's the issue. This is a serious medical issue, not because it's psychotic, right? Once your brain starts to malfunction, your body is in disarray. So you want to make sure that you are good to go on any day of the week. You want to make sure, and the only thing that can give you that confidence is truth. But I tell you what, the truth is very painful. It's going to hurt you. But you know what? No pain,
No gain. Finishing each other's sentences here. Yes, for sure. I am 100% on board with that. So let's just say, now hypothetically, I've sought out the Israelite Nation. I have learned about its teaching, its readings. I now know the truth. I am now free, in a sense. So then peace should follow. But peace, it seems almost like a fleeting idea. It's not, it's constantly worked upon. How do I maintain that peace?
Right. Very good point. Because, you see, we're not talking about what I like to call a microwave mentality.
How
Microwave,
Yeah.
it's almost like you can get your food out of the freezer, you pop it into the microwave, and within 10 minutes, you got a meal, right? No. This is for the long haul. This is life, right? This begins at birth or even before birth and goes all the way through, even to death. Or if you do it right, you sleep and then you go further.
Talking about the doctrine.
Yes, the peace. I'm talking about peace.
Okay.
You see, because again, we have to live in the world that is dominated by lies. It's not going to be easy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be easy if you want to walk according to the truth. You're going to be constantly attacked by those on the other side, and there's more of them. Even though one of us can destroy 10 million of them, but the bottom line is, it is not a 1, 2, 3 step situation. It is a life journey,
Like a commitment.
a commitment and dedication. You have to continue, and there are different variations of it.
Explain.
For example, what you put in, you get out, right? So more people will put more in, they get more. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to change the circumstances around them on the outside. They change the circumstances within. So they are better at what they do, better understanding at how the doctrine works, right? Because you have the ability to communicate with our Father.
Okay. Yeah,
Always
of course, yeah.
remember
It's very
harmony.
important.
Harmony is the key. And harmony, like I said, the only thing I know how to use as an example is the music, right? The sound is what tells you how good you are, right? The quality of the sound. You can hit those notes, but if they're not on target, I have a friend who hits those notes all the time. I'm not going to call the name,
I kind of want to know who the friend is.
but the point is, we have to stay on key, right? That the music is in a certain key, we all have to sing. No matter how high you go or how low you go, if it's not on key, you're going to sound terrible. It's the same thing with peace. You got to go through the steps. First, the spirit of truth. Walk that through. It could take 10 years, could take 20 years. Then you have your freedom in the process, though. But you're only free within the family.
I like that. Sorry. I want you to continue, but I just want to pause there because
Okay.
you're saying it could take 10 years. It could take, it's not just a cut and dry
not cut and
situation.
dry.
Just the fact that you came out of the lie, the fact
That's
that you're wrestling to let go of the lie because you want to hold on to that comfort and that. But
But
that's
coming
not
out
real
of the
peace.
lie is a huge achievement because it gives you a sense of awareness of what's out there and what is truthful, what is out there that is not truthful. In other words, the lie versus the truth. That is the beginning. If you can tell the difference, you're on your way to success, right? And your confidence will only build further and further, greater and greater from that moment on, to the point where you feel, now I'm free, right? Even though you're free, it's going to be hard or difficult to explain that to people because they think they're free because they got $1 trillion in the
Yeah,
bank,
exactly. Yeah.
right? It's going to be difficult. So you have to choose your audiences, and then ultimately we have peace. It may be that could come when you sleep.
Oh.
Yeah. Finally, you got peace. But it's a long way off because the world is not conducive
For
to the
peace.
truth, furthermore, the peace. It's quite of a hard subject, but that's what we take a great deal of comfort and satisfaction because we know that we cannot fail if we apply the precepts of the book. We can never fail. And we see the changes and we understand more and more as we don't necessarily go and criticize because that's not what it's about. Just because we know the truth from the lie doesn't give us the right to tell people that what they're doing is wrong. The only time we will say that is if they use our book. You use our book, we're going to call you out as a liar. Get your own book, write about your own family, and we are fine. We respect you. We might even buy a copy.
Earlier, you were talking about the Bible, how it is our
Our
manual, our
instruction
instruction
manual.
book. When you said that just now, I thought about, IKEA doesn't go to, I don't know, Walmart and use their instruction manual on how to run their business.
Exactly. And I always like to use the automobile concept.
Okay.
If you buy a Mercedes-Benz, it comes with its own manual. If you buy a Honda Accord, it comes with its own manual. So you're not going to take your Honda to the Mercedes-Benz dealership to get it fixed because being a more expensive car, they charge you more for the same parts, right? And some of the parts might not even fit in the
yeah,
Honda.
might work totally differently. Yeah.
Exactly. So you stay in your own lane, go to your own dealer, and then usually you avoid the warranty if you go elsewhere, right? And get the maintenance done effectively. Well, we so happen to have the book. So I call it the script. It's called Scripture. And we see the God of Israel as the supreme director.
Yeah.
And he is over all the nations. And he picks and chooses who he wants in whatever chapter he is performing, you know. And it's beautiful when you see how it unfolds. And it's not about who is so-called black or who is so-called white. It's everyone has a hand to play or role to play in his endeavor because he is the creator, right? And sometimes there are certain roles that are only for Europeans. And then there's certain roles that are only for Africans. Then there's always the Israelite at the center. The lead role is the Israelites' role. So that's the key. So it's looked upon as a manual, an instructions manual. It's also looked upon as a script from a director who's in a drama or movies or however you want it. And we have the script. If anyone wants to come in and play or come in and understand, they have to come to us. And we will show them, yeah, it's your role right here in the book. You have to be the one that does the enslaving, or you have to be the one to do whatever is necessary.
I would want to be the one that does the enslaving.
But if you want to be on the side of the teacher, you got to come into the Israelite nation and be qualified.
So then that brings me to another point. What are the dangers? Like, say I wanted to, I'm hearing you, you're making sense, but I'm liking my $1 zillion in the bank. What is the dangers, or what are the dangers of staying in that comfortable ignorance space?
You know, I don't know, to be honest with you, because I've been out of that for so long. But if you're comfortable in that, then our paths will not meet. We have nothing to do with that. If we're not about dragging people out their houses and out of their beds and saying, "Come, let me teach you about my God." You have to want to. If you don't want to, we leave you alone, but we can still be friends. You can invite me over every now and then. I'll have a drink with you. I don't have a problem with that, as long as you stay in your lane. You see, and it is not about that. You have to be called. You have to be chosen. And then, if I called you, you may not necessarily hear my call because of all the distractions going on around you.
Or if you called me, heard your call, but chose to ignore it.
And that's the next stage. You could choose to ignore my call. The phone is ringing. I don't ask to pick it up every time. But if you see an important call, yeah, pick it up. Right? If my elder's calling, yeah, pick up the phone. If it's somebody else that you think is a sales call or a scam call, you can, whatever. Let them leave a message. You see? So it's one thing to hear. It is another thing then to respond. And even after you've responded, it's another thing to run the course, to have the spirit of endurance, because it is not a quick fix. If everything around us was good and relevant, then it'd be fine. But everything around us is contrary. So it's a challenge. And we don't have the right to go tell people how to behave.
Yes.
That's not our position. We have the position of leading by example. And if they have a problem and they come to us, we can say, well, maybe it's the God you worship. Maybe it's that cross around your neck, or that cube on your forehead, or whatever the case may be. But only if they ask. If they do not ask, we don't have anything to say.
You're talking to me about the 400 years, 1619 to 2019, how we are peacemakers, how we have the truth. What happens to an Israelite now who has accepted that role as an Israelite and that responsibility thereof? What happens? Can you give me an example how that ties in or relates to the 400 years of enslavement and our truth and who we are as Israelites?
You've accepted the doctrine.
Yes.
Right? You're following our teaching.
Yes.
Right. So we've only had that 400 years, and there's no other, as far as I know. And from now on, we're like I said before, we're into the era of judgment now. All the nations that had a hand in
But
our
why?
enslavement.
Why were we enslaved for 400 years?
Oh, why were we enslaved? Because we did not do as our father said that we should do. We failed to follow his instructions. We went after other gods, for example. We were infatuated by their performance, not knowing that what they did was meant for their own people and not us. Because
So we try to follow someone else's
we
manual.
tried to follow somebody else's. And that is what caused our downfall. The key to this whole exercise, the spiritual exercise, is the covenant. We have a covenant of peace, or a covenant of circumcision, however you want to call it, right? Whereby we are committed and supposed to be dedicated to the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob.
Like a promise.
Yeah. Any violation from that carries a serious penalty.
Okay. So now you say circumcision.
Yeah.
I'm a woman. I can't be circumcised. What do you mean by circumcision?
Your heart can be circumcised.
Okay.
And that is where we're going. Now, for the men, they start with circumcision of the foreskin, but for the woman, the heart. And this is important because we have to present, our heart becomes, what should we say, contaminated, if it's otherwise,
Sin.
with sin. So we need to have it purged. And when we clear it to the point where it now functions perfectly, we have a situation where the royal law that is part of the covenant is now written in our hearts. You see? So that every time we need to do something, we don't have to run to the book and say, let me see, is it here? Am I doing what's right? We just have it there. It's almost like it's inscribed in our souls.
Like in your conscience.
In your consciousness, yes. So now you are governed with purity, if you will. You have a good spirit, a good soul, and your body can only get better.
Harmony.
Harmony, yes, ma'am. Harmony. And that's what we're talking about. You see, it's peace. There's no point laying down and then you can't sleep, right? You have all kinds of nightmares coming at you. Okay? There's no peace in that rest. So when you put your mind down, your body down to sleep, and you lay on the pillow, and you said to the God of Israel, thank you for a successful day, or thank you for bringing me through the challenges of the day, however you want to say it. And before that, you drift off. That's just the beginning. Then you have experiences, visions, dreams that are going to connect you in an even more phenomenal way with the creator of heaven and earth. Not directly, but into what he would like to show you, into what you may have to do in the future.
Are you talking about like prophecies?
It's a dream,
Okay.
right? Let's call it a dream. But a dream can have very, very strong implications, if depending on the framework, of course. It could have one of satisfaction, meaning you must have done something that is great, or it could be that you want to be shown something that's going to be coming later, or something that you have to be aware of, or whatever. They're different formats, you see. Or might have ideas that are relayed to you through the dream. It's a form of communication.
And is these dreams are all related to the conscience?
They're all through, you're sleeping, and your spirit leaves, explores, and returns. And then the brain kicks in, and you're able to memorize what it is that you're supposed to do or not do or stay away from or get engaged in.
I feel like that could be a whole other subject in terms of the spirit, the body, the mind.
But the issue here is one whereby you have a certain element of peace. You have a certain element of communicating with our Father so that we could get the benefits of life.
Can you explain a little bit more as to why communication is important?
Communication is very important because, first of all, you cannot be educated without communication. Sometimes a lot of communication is not done by words alone, I just described the dreams and the visions. But there's communication with the body sometimes. It might ache in the knee or something, then you have to fix that. But without communication, then there is no education. This is why we go back to the scriptures, right? There's a lot. The scriptures to us is like a library. And we have documented here instructions that we have to follow, experiences that we have to learn from. And there's so much there. But it is all in a nice, compact library that we can take from one place to another. It allows us to communicate with our forefathers, our foreparents, not directly, but at least to get a sense of awareness of what they went through so that we can learn from that. Which brings, because nothing, look, they lived in the same world of lies that we're living in today. I think today is probably more challenging because it is not as what should we say? The people are not aware of what they're doing. Back in the ancient times, it was necessary because the spirits were always there in some cases, talking to them. Even though, most people, you can't see a spirit, they'll appear and talk to you and tell you what is what. You know what you're doing, right? Today we don't have that. People do what they have to do. They get results, but it's more of an abstraction. Only the top level may get the spiritual appearances, so to speak. But either way, it's a spiritual submission. That is communication. That's the point I want to get to.
Okay.
Even the way we speak. Some people talk about speaking Hebrew. When a person makes a statement like that, I make sure my glasses are on properly because I want to see who I'm talking to, right? Because that tells me that they're submitting to a different spirit, which they have a right to do.
I feel like I want to know more about that. Why do you feel that they aren't speaking Hebrew or that they're submitting to a different spirit?
Because language is spiritual.
Okay.
Yes. It's like music, right? And I when you have music, you have a chart or a sheet with music on it. But you don't have a music with sounds. You have symbols, right? It's 7 symbols, like 7 lines.
7.
Right. So you have the symbols on there, and each one, because of its position, has a different sound. Language now, on the other hand, you have letters or symbols in the form of letters in our language, English or French or Spanish, etc. But in ancient times, they had symbols. They would have like stars or animals or, different symbols like that. Or the crucifix, what they call them. In Egypt, they call it the
Ankh?
The Ankh, right? Their messages, one symbol positioned in a certain area could carry a whole story that will fill a chapter of a book.
So why then, if someone spoke Hebrew, it would be, nope, different spirit. Why is that not? Did not the Israelites speak Hebrew?
No, they didn't. The thing about it is when the Bible, which again is our manual, explains that it doesn't speak of a Hebrew language.
Okay.
It speaks of a Hebrew tongue.
Difference? Explain the difference.
Yes.
For me, please.
You see, the tongue is even better because you know that right there, there's a spiritual submission right there in that.
Okay.
Right? You could see almost without saying it. Let me put it to you this way. We had a situation where the Spirit from God came down in the time of Babylon, and confounded the language.
Yes.
And scattered the
Babel,
people.
yes.
Right? Then you had another situation with the Israelites at the time of Pentecost where the Spirit came down again. But this time, he brought the people speaking different languages
together.
that were confounded at Babel, brought them together. Now, you could speak Latin, I could speak French, and I could understand what you're saying because the Spirit is there. You see? That's what I'm talking about. So there is a certain spiritual element. I believe, in my little way of thinking, that awareness, that spiritual awareness, that is part of the communication, right? Because it says where two are gathered together in my name, there will I be also.
Mm-hmm.
That awareness is what is the Hebrew term.
The awareness.
The awareness. It is not so much because Hebrew is not a literary language. It's not written anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's not spoken. You can't turn on the Hebrew TV. It's not. It doesn't happen. So that awareness, because Abraham was the first Hebrew, Isaac, Jacob, right? They had an awareness of communication with the Creator, with the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And not just the awareness, but the understanding of the communication. See, again, all communication is not in words.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? There's inspiration. If a guy gets up and started talking, waka waka whatever, and he claims that is Hebrew, that he does that or she does it in such a vain manner. It is almost like, oh, I'm doing this because I'm smart. It's about me. Mm-hmm. But when we speak of the Hebrew tongue, that awareness of the communication between father and son or father and daughter is very humbling. You see, it's not only humbling for the individual, but the individual gives praises and glorification to our Father because of the spirit of understanding that allows the communication, even in different tongues, to be understood and appreciated. That is almost a miracle.
It's amazing.
You see, this is not something you can learn in school.
But at the Israelite Nation Ministries.
You see, but the point is, and even our Minister Paul, he said that he was talking about the greatest gift is charity, which is humility. Mm-hmm. But he also mentions that there is a gift of tongues, and that there's of interpretation of tongues. You see, so if I'm speaking a language that you can't understand, and I'm saying it's coming from God, then I should have someone next door
should be able to
interpret, right? Now, I don't know what I'm saying, but he or she does. And he or she will speak the language of both of us that we can understand as well. So my point then is when you get an individual who claims to be the giver of the language, the speaker of the language, the interpreter of the language, what have you got?
A liar.
You got a big stinking liar. But if it serves you well, you're not part of my family, knock yourself out.
I like that you're exploring the truth and the lie here. It's learning, education, truth through education, and then freedom. Mm-hmm. So then that begs the question, what are we free from?
You're free from contamination of sin. You're free from contamination of the lie.
The lie.
Right?
Yeah.
You're free now to practice or to exercise the truth, even to a greater extent. Right? You may even find peace. You're free to inquire about peace, or to go there and investigate it and see how you can bring more peacefulness in this earth. Because, you see, peace is not just the absence of war and violence. Peace is the gift from the God of Israel, a gift that allows the individual not only to communicate with him, but for those that he calls. You see, it allows us to create an atmosphere that we can get the fullness of our potential. What it does, and this is where education is so important, because education is not what I can tell you and you have to believe it. Education is my creating an environment for you whereby I allow you to be the best person that you could be. In other words, whatever is your God-given talent, that comes out. So you can see it has very little to do with me. All I'm doing is creating the atmosphere. My Father is the one that is going to push that spirit within you, and allow that spirit to marinate to its fullest. You see? So, as doctors of the Israelite doctrine, this is what we try to do: create the atmosphere to nurture the individual to a
Awareness.
point where that individual could glorify his or her Father. In that zone, so to speak, that spiritual zone, and that communication is direct, right? That's when the person could speak a foreign language. But there's no person there to take notes.
Yeah, because there has to be someone there to interpret, or else it's just
Exactly. Now, the scripture will say in the Hebrew tongue, it means this or it means that. Again, that is, again, what I'm saying, in the Hebrew tongue, meaning understanding the way the culture of the Hebrew people work, that this is what it means. So that person would have to have some measure of interpretation as well. The gift of interpretation. This is what I'm talking about.
okay.
Yeah.
So, what do you say to those people who take our book, the For Us By Us, like FUBU, For Us By Us, About Us book, and say that it has started wars, or wars have been have gone on in its name, or that it causes turmoil, or that it causes? What do you say to them?
I say that is good. That's very good. Because this is why we say to people, do not teach from this book, because you can't tell the truth. You're going to lie to the people. And if you're lying to them, you're going to have to support that lie with evidence. You cannot do that. So when the guy recognizes on the other side that you can't back up what you're saying to any degree, then he's going to like, what kind of foolishness? You're going to get mad. And one person getting angry, they spread the rumor that the individual who was trying to teach them from this book, who was not an Israelite, is a liar. They're ganging up on you. Now translate that into nations. And they're all fighting for power. It has nothing to do with this book. Yes, there's power in this book, but only for us, right? And that is as delegated by our Father, whatever he wants us to do. Not for our sole doing. I can't say I want to be this, I want to be that, just because I read it in the book. That there's a process for everything. So if people think that they could use this to make money or to make themselves, to empower themselves, then they run the risk of their own demise, because other people now will see what they're doing, know that they're a fraud, and attack them. That's how the wars got started. People trying to get power within Christianity. All the wars, the first Christian war, the second Christian war, they were all fought by Christian nations who were trying to get power over each other. Has nothing to do with the book, has nothing to do with us.
Christianity. Where did it come from?
Again, I could point the finger straight to Babylon,
Okay.
right? And I say that because I look at the EU today, the European Union. European Union, well, first of all, let's deal with the name Europe.
Okay.
Europa was a Hamitic descendant, and her ancestors came from Babylon as well.
Okay.
Europa,
Europa.
yeah. And she is the one that settled in Europe. Well, started out in Greece. First Crete, and the Cretians became Grecians, and the Grecians now all over Europe, right? And even if you look at the European emblem, it's a woman sitting on a bull, which has some very negative connotation, both physically and spiritually, but I'm not going to go there now. And they also have the flag with a 5-pointed star in it, which has some very negative demonic connotations for another time. What else do they have? They all use the cross, which again is demonic and evil. They all use the obelisk, which again is very demonic and very evil, sun god, and very perverted. And we can go on and on and on about all the things that they've adopted from the Babylonians and the Egyptians to formulate their culture. But that's their doing. We don't have a problem with that.
So why do they use our manual?
They use this to deceive. You see, there's nowhere it's written in this book that you should put a cross on your forehead and tie it down as a black cube and make strange perverted gestures. There's no way that you should bow down before a cross. It's not written here. There's no way that you should keep every Saturday, I call it the Sabbath day. That's another lie. There's no way whereby you should celebrate Christmas or Hanukkah or Diwali or Festival of Lights, whatever you want to call it. It's a lie if you're using this book. If you're using your own book, written about your own family and your own culture, it's not a lie. It's the truth. If you like the sun and you want to call the sun Horus, Zeus, Jupiter, Saturn, knock yourself out. But don't read it in this book. You're not going to see it.
You won't find it in there.
You're not going to find it. Or don't try to use this book to justify your behavior. That's a lie. That's deception. That's ignorance. That falls into the category of an inferiority complex. You, if you call yourself Christian, you're inferior. And you feel that inferiority complex. So you have to justify it. You have to satisfy it. And you want to be like somebody else. They don't look like you. They don't behave like you. But you want to be them so badly that you would take as much as you can from them, even though you don't understand any of it, and try to use it.
Taking our
book.
We are,
Yes.
we are the them.
Even calling yourself by our name. So many people call themselves Israel and Israelite. They have nothing to do with us. Cannot practice us, what we practice, do not serve the same God that we serve, who have named themselves. Can you imagine a child not being able to talk but naming himself or herself? That's not a child, that's a demon. Yeah, so Christianity, I think where it came from, I told you the Babylonian. First, I like to call it, up until the 16th century, you could call it idolatry.
Okay.
Now, there are many different names up until that time, but idolatry, yes.
Would paganism be?
Paganism, you can say that. Some people call it Gnosticism. What else did they say? Oh, there were so many, and I don't really care, right? Because it has nothing to do with me. I see idolatry, I call it as I see it, idolatry. They renamed idolatry Christianity in the 16th century in the English language, okay? Then in the 17th century, the late 17th century, they had at that time, and I'm saying the Europeans when I say they, the Gentile Europeans, they had at that time a reformation on their Christianity. They did not like the way the papacy was administering the leadership. And they, like for instance, judging from what they said in the history books, you could pay for your sins and have them erased by the Catholic Pope.
Penance, sir.
Yeah.
Is it called penance?
Hmm?
Is it penance for your sins?
I don't know what they call it, but you can pay to have them removed, allegedly. Maybe fine. But some of them, even though they were Christians, were still influenced by what they were trying to read in this book. So they rebelled against that because they thought it wasn't true.
The Reformation.
Right. In the process, there was an agreement made whereby, like for instance, the British stopped calling themselves Catholic, and they called themselves Protestants and Anglicans because they were protesting, right?
Okay.
Protestants. And they call themselves Anglicans because the majority of the people were Anglos from the Teutonic tribes and from the north and so forth. So they used things like that. All I'm saying here is now what was called idolatry and renamed Christianity was divided up into certain segments. So as the papacy made an agreement. So they gave the British a certain portion, and that was called the Protestants or the Anglicans, right? They're still Christians. They still worship Jesus, whoever they call Jesus, right? But now the British monarchy is head of Christianity in Britain. You know, the way they will tell you it, they will say, well, the queen or the king is head of the church. Well, we know as Israelites that the head of the church is Christ Jesus. So so now, but that's up to them. But that's why We are the church, so they're not talking about us. They're just trying to imitate us, right? In addition to that, you've got the Protestants and the Anglicans. Then you have Lutherans out of Germany and Calvinists out of Germany. Yes. And then you have Judaism, right, for the Khazars that were part of Christianity.
Okay.
And that they were a part of it in the 17th century because they helped to overrun and defended the whole Christian empire, or they were part of the program of European Gentile idolatry. So they were given their own cut, Judaism, just like the Seventh-day Adventists got theirs, and the Methodists got theirs, and the Pentecostals. There's so many of them. I don't know how many they are. I've never been a Christian, so I don't know. Now, and Judaism now, they are managing, allegedly, the old book, what they call the First Testament, the Old Testament. And the other Christians are in the new side of the book, what they call the New Testament. And I said to myself, well, this is foolishness, because how is it that in Judaism they do not read the Second Testament, but everybody's a rabbi?
Interesting. Yes, in the Second Testament, that's when they,
So I'm like, how does that happen? When everybody, and and they changed all the letters. They changed all the what is it? They changed the J's to Y's, but yet they living in Jerusalem. Don't get it. And they want joy. Don't get that either. And justice. Don't understand that. Just saying, because I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I'm just saying leave our book alone. Write your own book. That's all I'm saying. Because if you use our book, you can prove to us that you're a liar. And not just a liar, but an ignorant liar.
I liked all that information that you were giving me. I didn't even want to interrupt you because I was just trying to soak it in myself. Is there any place where we can find that information if one of our viewers want to go and
you can download it? You could look. I got all of this from the one about Judaism. I didn't know that Judaism was invented by Christianity until last year, and I had to go online and download it from a Khazarian professor. I think he was at the University of California, if I'm not mistaken, but he wrote about that. Then there's another Khazarian professor that wants to retire from Judaism. He doesn't want to be called Jewish anymore. He wants to be called Israeli. And so there's a lot of that out there, if you know where to search. But that's not the issue. I mean, there's a lot of people in Christianity who've left because they cannot find Christianity in this book. The word is not there. And they're just confused as to what is it that they're going to do. All of these are lies that the truth could heal if they want to be healed. Some people, because of Christianity, they have turned against the book itself. Well, that's fine because they had no right to be trying to teach or learn from it in the beginning. They should come to us. And they're now, they take objections to the book, which is fine. I'd rather that than someone using it to lie. Just say, I want nothing to do with it. That's fine. I like that.
Can you tell me a little bit about your own personal story and your own journey? What made you, let's say, pick up that Bible and read to find this truth, to start your own personal journey?
Well, I didn't come into the light of the truth until late, about 30 or so. But what I did know is, from a historical perspective, what was going on in the world was not for me. Meaning, it had nothing to do with me. I couldn't find myself anywhere. So I was constantly looking. I practically lived at the libraries all the time.
I can tell by the information that you...
I was looking and looking and looking and couldn't find anything. So then I read in a newspaper once. There was a newspaper called the Contrast newspaper in Toronto. And Elder Shadrach had written an article, and I picked up the newspaper and read the article. He was talking about the children of slavery as the Israelites in the Bible. And I was like, wow, this makes a lot of sense. and he gave the scriptural references to justify the statements that he was making. All of that I could relate to because I had a historical perspective. And I understood the slavery. I didn't understand how, why, when, or where. Then that became, and once I heard of Elder Shadrach, I called him right away to inquire how I could be a part of what he was doing. And he said he'll take my number, and he said he will call me back. And I said, okay. And he did call me back.
Aye.
And then we hooked up from that moment on. He was my teacher. He taught me. He's still teaching me today. And I'm happy to learn. And once I got this, I'm good. I don't need anything else. I don't have any criticism for the world except when they intrude on our territory. And I don't have anything else to say, good or bad. I leave it alone.
I think that's an excellent example of what we're speaking about today, how you were seeking and you found the truth. And now here you are free. I want to thank you for coming in and talking to us about this. You've definitely opened my eyes, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners are also grateful for your insight into this topic. And I hope you're listening. Truth, education, truth, freedom, peace.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.